Part 1. Scapular of Light. Prologue. I never imagined my life would change, that one day I would be chosen. I was just an ordinary boy raised in a quiet town, unaware of the war that raged in realms unseen. But then everything shifted. A relic, an ancient and sacred piece of heaven's grace, was entrusted to me. A simple scapular, they called it, a token of faith, but to me it was not a burden. As I first thought, it was a gift, a divine calling from none other than Mother Mary herself to Saint Simon Stock. She came to me in a dream, radiant and filled with love. Her voice echoed in my heart, a gentle whisper that carried the weight of eternity. The scapular, my child, is a sign of protection. Wear it with faith, and it will guard you against the darkness that seeks to destroy. At that moment, I knew my life was no longer ordinary. I wasn't just a boy anymore. I was chosen for something greater, and the scapular was my shield, my guide. But with this sacred gift came a heavy responsibility. Asmodeus, the king of devils, now set his sights on me. A being of pure malice and darkness, he sought the scapular, knowing it held the power to break this hold over the world, and so he wanted to destroy it, to corrupt its divine power. He wanted to claim it as his own. I now know that I wasn't just given the scapular for protection. I was chosen to protect it from the forces of evil, to wield its power in the name of faith, to stand against the darkness and do what must be done. Though the path ahead is fraught with danger, the scapular is no burden. It is my strength, my courage, and my connection to something far greater than I am. And in this journey, I know that Mother Mary watches over me, her grace empowering me with every step. As I stand before you, the bearer of scapular, I ask you for your prayers and your belief in me, for the battle between good and evil is not just a tale of legends. It is real, and it is happening now. I am Blaise Titus, and this is my mission, not a burden, but a divine calling to protect the sacred, to stand against Asmodeus, and to discover the strength within myself through the grace of the scapular. Chapter 1. The Awakening of the Scapular. In the days when twilight seemed to linger longer o'er the hills, and the world had its breath beneath the heavy veil of unseen war, there came unto me a relic of great and perilous worth, the sacred scapular. 'Twas not gifted in grand ceremony, nor wrapped in kingly silk, but rather bestowed in the hush of dawn, when the earth herself seemed to kneel in prayer. It was my own mother, radiant with the grace of the Queen of Heaven, who placed it round my neck. Her hands trembled not, though her eyes shone with tears unbidden. "Take, my son," she spake softly, "for it is not a mere garment, but a shield woven of faith and battle tested in the fires of countless wars, unseen by mortal eyes." At her touch, I felt a word, not of flesh, but of spirit, as though The very breath of God whispered against my skin. The scapular clung to me, not heavy, but weighty with purpose. I knew, without word or learning, that I was marked, not merely chosen, but claimed by the armies of heaven. And that solemn hour, destiny's mantle descended upon me, pressing against my soul like a seal. The path before me would not be of ease, nor of earthly pleasure, but of peril and glorious strife. And so I set forth, the sacred token upon my breast, the blood of martyrs coursing in my veins, and the ancient hosts of heaven watching from beyond the veil. Thus began my journey into the charted realms of faith and fire, bearing the power of the ancients, the badge of both my peril and my promise. Chapter 2. The Divine Marking. The scapular weighed upon my heart, and though its presence was no more than the touch of a feather, it felt as though the very heavens themselves pressed upon my soul. It was on a night starless and veiled in the quiet shadows of the world that I beheld the vision that would change my destiny forever. I stood upon a hill, the moon cloaked in the soft mist of heaven. The air was thick with an unseen presence, and though no sound stirred the branches of the trees, I knew that the winds of heaven were near. It was then, amidst the stillness, that a light shone forth from the heavens. At first, but a glimmer, it grew with great speed, until the very sky itself seemed to ablaze. The light descended, and I felt it envelop me, a flame not of fire, but of purity, searing through the depths of my soul. In the heart of that brilliance stood the figure of a woman, her form shrouded in robes of shimmering white, her countenance one of indescribable grace and love. Her eyes filled with sorrow and mercy met mine, and I was struck with a force that threatened to rend my spirit in twain. It was then that I knew this was not a mere mortal, but the Blessed Virgin Mary, Queen of Heaven and Mother of all. "Place, my son," she spoke, her voice like the sweet melody of chimes in the wind. "Thy fate is set, and thou art chosen to bear the weight of the most sacred charge. As I mark thee, so shall the forces of heaven protect thee. Thy path is one of the battle and sacrifice, and thou shalt walk among the shadows, yet never stray from the light." With these words, her delicate hands reached forth, and I fell to my knees before her, overcome with awe and reverence. She traced her fingers upon my forehead, and though I could feel naught but the brush of her touch, a great warmth flooded through me. Where her hand had rested, a mark appeared, not of ink, nor of earthly substance, but a symbol that burned upon my skin, as if wrought by the very hand of God. It was a seal of divine power, an unspoken covenant between heaven and earth, engraved in the heart of my being. "This mark shall guide thee," she continued, her voice now a whisper, like the rustle of the wind through the trees. It is a sign of thy protection and the emblem of thy purpose. With it thou shalt withstand the powers of darkness. With it thou shalt rise when others fall. As she spoke these final words, the vision began to fade, and I found myself kneeling in the cold stillness of the hilltop. The night returned in somber quiet, yet with me something had changed. The mark upon my brow, though invisible to mortal eyes, burned bright in my soul, a reminder of the charge I had received and the purpose I must fulfill. In the stillness, a voice, not of the earth, but of the heavens, echoed with me. Thou shalt never alone place the forces of heaven watch thee always. Go forth and let thy faith be thy sword. And so I rose, knowing the path ahead would not be easy, but that I was not unarmed, for I now bore the divine mark, the indelible seal of the Almighty, and I knew that with it I was bound to a fate that none could alter. Chapter 3. Through the Shadowed Veil. The winds of fate blow ever toward the unknown, and so it was that I found myself drawn to the forest of shadows, a place whispered of in olden tales, where the very veil between the mortal realm and the spiritual one grew thin, like gossamer threads awaiting the slightest touch. None who ventured into this accursed forest returned unscathed, for it was a land haunted by spirits, both lost and malevolent. I heard the rumors, those chilling words carried by the tongues of old men around the hearth, of the spirits that roamed its darkened paths, of the eternal light that ruled there. Yet I knew my path must lead through that darkness, for only there could I truly understand the forces that sought to unravel the world. The scapular upon my breast stirred, as though it too felt the calling of the shadows, urging me onward. I had no choice but to answer. The mark upon my brow, the seal of heaven, burned with quiet strength, and I pressed forward, step by faltering step, into the cursed depths. The trees rose like ancient sentinels, their branches twisted in grotesque shapes, their bark pale and ashen, bearing scars from time long past. The air was thick with a heavy mist that seemed to swirl with whispers, voice too faint to comprehend, but too powerful to ignore. The very ground beneath my feet seemed to groan in warning, shifting with unseen movement, but still I walked. It was then that I first encountered them, the spirits of the forest, wraith-like and spectral, their forms barely distinguishable from the shadows that consumed the trees. They were the lost souls forever trapped in the twilight between life and death, their cries echoing in the wind like a mournful hymn, their eyes hollow and empty, fixed upon me, as though searching for a weakness, a crack through which they might enter my soul. A shiver ran down my spine, yet I clutched the scapular tightly. I had been marked for this purpose, and no spirit, no force of darkness could sway me from my course. From the deepest part of the forest came a voice, low and chilling, one that seemed to freeze the very blood in my veins. Please, Titus, it whispered, though no mouth had uttered it. You walk in the land of shadows, but your light shall not survive here. Your faith will fail. All shall be swallowed by the night. I turned, though I knew not from whence the voice came. There was no form, no figure to be seen, only the endless dark. But I knew this voice. It was the whisper of Asmodeus, the king of devils, the great adversary who sought to unravel the will of heaven. His words, laced with malice, threatened to break my spirit, yet I stood firm. From the scapular blazed with the light of the Virgin Mary's protection. Thy words carry no weight, Prince of Darkness, I proclaimed, though my voice trembled beneath the immense weight of the words. I walk in the light of heaven, and though you tempt me, I shall not fall. The forest seemed to grow quieter in response, but the shadows deepened and the air grew colder still. The spirits encircled me, their hollow eyes now gleaming with a dark hunger. Yet the light of the scapular remained bright, a beacon against the encroaching abyss. I pressed on, ever forward, knowing that the journey was not just one of distance, but of spirit. Every step to that cursed wood was a test of my will, a trial of my faith, and though the darkness threatened to consume me, I clung to the promise of the divine mark, the mark of heaven that burned within me like a living flame. Finally, after what seemed an eternity of wandering through the forsaken land, I emerged from the forest's embrace, breathless and trembling, but unbroken. The mist began to dissipate, and the sun, pale and worn, shone once again through the trees. I had passed to the shadowed vale, but the battle was far from over. The trials ahead would be even perilous. Asmodeus was not yet defeated, and the forces of darkness would not relent. Yet I now knew something deeper, that the light of heaven, once kindled within me, would guide me to the darkest places, and that the scapular, my eternal shield, would never falter. Chapter 4. The Mount of Eternal Light. The road ahead grew steeper, and the very air seemed charged with the weight of the heavens themselves, as though the earth itself sought to resist the coming of one so marked. Yet the path that lay before me was the one I must walk, for at its summit rested the answers to the trials yet to come. I had journeyed far from the forest, and now the land had begun to change. The shadows that once clung to the trees grew less dense, the air lighter with each step I took. Before me loomed the Mount of Eternal Light, its peak lost amidst a cloud of divine radiance, as if heaven itself sought to touch the earth. The mountain was said to be a place where the gates between mortal men and celestial beings were closest, where those pure of heart could commune with the divine. It was here I was meant to seek counsel, and I knew not what awaited me, but the scapular at my breast burned with an eagerness that was unmistakable. The journey to the top of the mountain was not one for the faint of heart. The ascent was fraught with peril. Craggy rocks and sheer cliffs tested my endurance, the thin air sapping my strength. Yet every time I faltered, the scapular pulsed with a comforting warmth, and the light within me burned brighter. It was here, amidst the cold winds and rugged heights, that I first saw him, the seraph, a celestial being whose very presence radiated the purity and strength of heaven. His wings, larger than any mortal could comprehend, were ablaze with an ethereal glow, and his countenance shone with a light that was both fierce and compassionate. Fear not, Blaze Titus. The seraph voice echoed like thunder, though the air remained still. You are not alone in this struggle. I, Seraphil, have been sent to guide you. His form was like nothing I had ever witnessed in this world. His eyes, deep as the heavens themselves, burned with a fire so pure that I almost blinded by it. His golden armor shimmered with divine inscriptions, and in his hand he held a sword of radiant light, a blade forged in the very fires of creation. I am the first among the seraphim, Seraphil continued, his wings folding gracefully as he descended to the ground before me, his voice reverberating with power and wisdom. Sent by the Most High to aid you in your quest, for you, Blaze, have been chosen to battle the forces of darkness, and it is true you that the light shall be preserved. I stood in awe before him, uncertain of my worthiness to stand before such a being, but Seraphil's gaze was kind, as though he could see the burden I bore upon my soul. The journey ahead is one of unimaginable trials, Seraphil spoke again, his tone grave. But fear not, for with the scapular you are armed with more than you realize. The mark upon you is not just a symbol, it's a beacon of divine power, a light that will guide you to the darkest of places. The trials ahead will test you very soul, but you will emerge victorious, for you carry within you the strength of heaven itself. His words were like a balm to my very spirit, and though the mountain was yet steep, I felt the weight of my destiny lessened. The path before me seemed clearer, though I knew the challenges would only grow more intense. But now I was no longer alone. The light of the seraph of heaven was with me, and that was enough. As the clouds parted above us, the radiant sun cast its golden light upon the morning peak, mountain peak, and the seraphil raised his sword high. This is the Mount of Eternal Light, Blaze, he declared. Here you will find strength. Here you will find clarity. And here you will discover the true power of the scapular, for the trials to come will require all that you are. With that, the seraph extended his hand to me, and with it I felt a surge of energy unlike any I had ever known, a power that filled me to my very core, igniting the light within me. It was the light of heaven, the power of the divine, and it was now mine to wield. Go forth, blaze Titus, Seraphil intoned. The light of heaven shall guide you, and with the scapular upon your breast you shall overcome all darkness. The battle is but beginning. Chapter 5. The Echoes of the Forgotten Ones. The mountain had given me strength, but now my path led me to a place forgotten by time, where the earth itself seemed to echo with the cries of those who had long passed, the ruins of a lost civilization, as they were known, lay hidden deep within the desolate heart of the wilderness. It was a land abandoned by man, but not by memory. The remnants of a once glorious people now stood in silent testimony, their crumbled structures half swallowed by the grasp of nature, their secrets buried beneath the sands of time. It was here, amidst the broken stones and shattered remnants of temples, that I sought the wisdom of the past. I had learned from Seraphil that in these ancient ruins lay the key of defeating Asmodeus, the dark king who sought to plunge the world into eternal shadow. His machinations were rooted in an ancient evil, one that had festered long before my time. To face him, I would need to understand that which had come before. As I wandered through the ruins, the air heavy with the scent of old stone and forgotten prayers, I could feel the presence of those long gone, the forgotten ones, the souls who had once fought against the darkness. Their spirits lingered in the wind, and their whispers, soft and sorrowful, brushed my ears. They were the ancient guardians, the protectors of the light, whose sacrifices had built the very foundation of the scapular I now wore. The ruins were a testament to their struggle, their determination to safeguard the light, even in the face of overwhelming darkness. As I walked, I stumbled upon the remains of what seemed to be a grand hall, its stone pillars cracked and broken, but still standing firm against the ravages of time. As its center lay a stone altar adorned with symbols I did not yet understand. It was here that I felt the pull of something greater, something hidden beneath the layers of dust and decay. I knew before the altar, my fingers brushing the cold ancient stone, and I prayed. In that moment of silent reverence, I felt a stir, a presence, not of this world. A voice, low and resonant, spoke to me from the depths of the ruins, as though the very earth itself sought to impart its wisdom. Blaze Titus, the voice murmured, its tone both mournful and hopeful. You stand here, we once stood, in the shadows of the great battle. We are the forgotten ones, the guardian of light, who gave our lives to protect the world from the darkness. We are the echoes of those who have fallen, yet We still watch, still guide. You are the hope of all that we fought for, the one who shall stand against the shadow. I stood, my heart pounding in my chest. These voices, these spirits were the ancestors, the protectors of light. Those who had once worn the scapular before me, their sacrifice had not been in vain. Their spirits still lived on, guiding the chosen ones through the trials of darkness. As I stood there in the ruins, I felt a surge of purpose. The scapular upon my breast pulsed with a renewed power, as though it too had recognized the presence of these ancient guardians. The forgotten ones had left me a legacy on that I could now carry forward, for their strength, their faith lived within me. But their warning was clear. The battle was not over. Asmodeus was still a threat, his forces gathering in secret, preparing to strike when least expected. And I, as your chosen successor, would need to wield the power of the scapular with the same courage and resolve that they had shown. I turned from the altar, my heart heavy with the weight of their legacy, but also filled with a renewed determination. The echoes of the forgotten ones would not be silenced. They had passed the torch to me, and it was my duty to face it, to face the darkness with all the strength of those who had come before. As I left the ruins, the voices of the forgotten ones whispered behind me, their words fading into the wind. May the Lord of